So if you saw the title of my video, you know that today I'm going to talk about Mexican historical fiction. I'm going to talk about 10 books here. 8 of those are from Mexican authors, and they are books set in a specific time period for Mexican history. 2 of those are not by Mexican authors, but are set in a specific time period in Mexican history. Of these 10, 7 are translated, but I'm going to talk about all 10 because they sound amazing and I want to tease you with amazing books that you can't read. That's a joke. I wish they were translated. These are books that I haven't read but want to read. So it's not like a recommendations video. It's more of a video of books I want to read that I want to share with you guys because maybe you'll add them to your list too. The topic of historical fiction has been on my mind because, as you know, I'm doing Historathon since last year, which is for reading history non-fiction. And I love it. I love it, you know this. Because I've been reading a lot of history, I have been wanting to get into historical fiction. I have read some historical fiction, I feel like, and I feel like it's something that I should like. Period movies, period shows are my jam. And for some reason, I can't get into historical fiction. And that's usually because whenever I'm reading a historical fiction novel, I'm constantly wondering, is this real? Is this made up? Is this real? Is this made up? And so I can't enjoy the book. So the books that I have enjoyed of historical fiction are books that are set in a time period but that don't necessarily revolve around historical events. But I would like to read both. And I feel like if I go into a book knowing what it is, taking it for what it is, I want to go into them just open to enjoying the story without constantly wondering what is real and what is not. And as you may or may not know, since last year I have been obsessed with historical fantasy. There are a lot of books that are considered historical fantasy. What I mean when I say historical fantasy is fantasy that is set in a specific time period, that is super well researched, that you can feel the research, and usually those types of books are slower paced. Those are the types of historical fantasy I like. So because of that, because of those two things, I have been wanting to get into historical fiction. And when this year started, I thought this is going to be the year. Cut to yesterday, I was lying in bed looking at my phone when I shouldn't be, and I came across a video that Shelly at Shelly Swearingen had just uploaded for a historical fiction readathon. I can't resist a readathon. I can't. I see someone make an announcement video and my mind just goes, let's join. What I'm going to do in terms of the readathon is I'm going to try to read one of these books in June. Shelly does have prompts, and of course my brain wants to hit all the prompts. But I never do, you know this. I never hit all the prompts. And she did say that the only thing you have to do to participate is read one book. So I'm going to try to read one book. Most of these fit a lot of prompts from Shelly's event. I will tell you which prompts they hit, and go check out Shelly's video. The first book I'm going to talk about is one of the 3 that is not translated, but please don't skip. Please don't skip. It is called Cartucho, which means shell, as in like for bullets, by Nellie Campobello, published in 1931. And it is about the Mexican Revolution, or it is set during the Mexican Revolution. So one clarification, the Mexican Revolution is not the war for independence, because I know that in the US, for instance, what they call the Revolutionary War is the war for independence. I think Nellie Campobello, the author, she lived through the revolution. She was a girl. So this book is a collection of vignettes written from the point of view of a little girl, of the revolution, of the dead bodies, of the killings, specifically in the north of the country. I am not, as you know, a short story person, but I do love short stories that are more like vignettes, which is what this book is. This is one of those books that, like, it sounds perfect to be picked up for a small indie publisher in English. The next book I'm going to talk about is a book that I had previously DNF'd, and it's a funny story because now I think I might love it. So it's called The Heart of Jade by Salvador de Madariaga, and this was published in 1942. This is one of the authors that is not Mexican, he is Spanish. And this book is set during the conquest, and it is kind of like a love story between a Spanish conquistador and an Aztec princess. A problematic topic by a male author in the 40s, by a Spanish male author, about the Aztecs and the conquest. So, it just screams problematic. That is why I had previously DNF'd it, but this is my grandma's favorite book. This is why I had attempted to read it, because it's my grandma's favorite book. She talks about it all the time, and because she knows that I love conquest history, she always says that I should read The Heart of Jade. And she lent me her copy. I started reading it. I was appalled by the treatment of the Aztecs. I was angry by the treatment of the Aztec princess in question and the way that she regards the Spanish conquistador as her god and savior, and she falls in love. I DNF'd it. But now, I think that I might enjoy it. And here's the thing. I think this is a book that you have to read for what it is. You have to go into it knowing that it's going to be problematic, knowing that the vision of the Aztecs is not going to be a great one, knowing that the treatment of women is not going to be a great one, least of all an Aztec woman, like even less so. But it's like reading a classic that will have problematic themes. But the prose is fantastic, the story is fantastic, the characters are engaging, and you just get immersed in the world and the vibes, and like this epic quality of story that I love. And I think that this book is that. It's like a love story, between like the Spanish and the Aztec princess, an epic story. It even has a sequel, I think, but I'm not interested in the sequel, at least not at the moment. Chunky book, with problematic stuff. Yeah, you have to go into it aware of that, and I think that now that I know what to expect, I can just go ahead and enjoy it for the story and the prose, and for the fact that it's my grandma's favorite book. Like, I would love to tell my grandma that I loved her favorite book. So next we have Pedro Páramo by Juan Rulfo, which was published in 1955. And it is, I would say, the Mexican novel. It is absolutely paramount in literature, in Latin American literature in general. It was heavily influential for a lot of things. It's considered a precursor of the Latin American boom, which was a literary movement that you can Google. So this one is about the main character who goes to a town, a fictional town called Comala to look for his father because it was his mom's dying wish for him to go look for his father. The novel starts when he arrives at this town, and it is a magical realism story with ghosts, living people, dead people. I think it's kind of like a haunted town. Some of the characters who speak are living, some of them are dead. I haven't done too much research into the plot of this one because I don't want to know. It's widespread, translated to a lot of languages. For sure, you can find this one. It's short. It was influential for, authors like Garcia Marquez or most of the famous Latin American authors will love this book. Funny story, I had already talked about this book in a video where I said I would never, ever, ever in my life read this book. Because it's one of those books that everyone, my father, tells you have to read. And so I was like, I'm not going to read it. But then you reach your 30s, you turn 34, and you're like, I should read that book. Oh, and this is set during the Cristero War. Then we have one that I have found two different titles in English. I feel like it's not like super readily available, but you can probably find it in like used bookstores and stuff like that. And the two titles that I have found it with are Mexican Bolero, weird title, and Tear This Heart Out, which is closer to the original title, which would be Tear My Life Out. That would be the title in Spanish, Arráncame la Vida. And that is by Ángeles Mastretta. And this one is another book that I should have read because it is set in the city where I live in. So it's one of those where if you're from here, like you should read this book. And so I haven't. This one is like a romantic drama. It's not romantic. It's more like conflict in a marriage. It's a super, super young girl, teenage girl who marries a much older man who wants to be a politician. And so it's just like a novel about her in her married life and like the political situation in Mexico during the time period, which is post-revolutionary. I think it's set in 1949, and this was published, I mentioned this was published in 1985. There is a movie for this that you can probably find with subtitles. I haven't watched the movie. This is one, like, literally it is amazing that I don't know more about this book. I don't know. I am stubborn when I want to be. Then we have one. That is my other top two that I want to read. I think this is the one that I'm going to try. And this is one that I feel like BookTube would love, that I don't know why it's not more widespread, that would fit perfectly with the category, Shelley's category of weird historical fiction, and it is called News from the Empire by Fernando del Paso. This was published in 1987, and it is about or set during the Second Mexican Empire, which was an empire, with an emperor and an empress after the Second French Intervention during the 19th century, so 1860s. We had an emperor from the Habsburgs who was Maximilian and his wife Carlota, and they were briefly emperors of Mexico, and their empire had a tragic end, perfect for fiction. And this novel explores the Second Mexican Empire, but with a very particular structure. It has like two different narratives, I want to say. So one is written in first person as a monologue of Carlota, who was the empress. She is one of those historical women who is said to have gone mad. Her POV is written, as I said, in the first person, and when she is older and she is locked up mad in a castle in France, of her reminiscing about the tragic empire and her relationship with Maximilian. And so that is one part. It's like one chapter, one chapter, one chapter, one chapter. And then the other one is a mixture of points of views and a mixture of structures. So you have epistolary chapters, you have a third person chapters, you have different chapters that are following different important people within the Second Mexican Empire, politicians, etc., but during the time of the empire. So it's kind of like dual timeline, one of them being the first person narrative of Carlota years later as an older woman, and the other one being like this mixture of letters, description, etc., from the time period of the Second Mexican Empire. I feel like this is the one that I'm going to attempt, and this is the longest one because of course I'm going to do that. Then we have the one that's probably the most known, which is Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, which was written in 1989, which was the year I was born, and it is set during the Mexican Revolution, I'm pretty sure. Again, in the north of the country. And this is like magical realism, recipes, family drama, love story, love triangle between two sisters and a man. It has a movie. I saw that it even has a ballet. I didn't know that. And yeah, as I said, this is probably the one that's most well known, and maybe a lot of you have even already read it. I'm going to tell you the truth. Between all these lists, I think this is the one I'm least attracted to. I don't know why, but it's one of those that I feel like I should read eventually. Then we have another one that is not translated. I'm going to go quick with this one. It's called El secreto de la noche triste by Héctor de Mauleon. And this one is a thriller mystery, so for me it would work for that prompt, and if you speak Spanish you can pick it up too. And it is set during the sad night, which is an event that happened during the Spanish conquest, when the Spanish lost a big battle, and it's known as the sad night because they're supposed to have cried under a tree, and like it was very sad for the poor Spanish. So this one is set during that, and it is based on the myth or the legend of the treasure of Moctezuma, and it kind of like creates a mystery around that. So it sounds fun. It's described as a new Spanish thriller. Oh, and this one was published in 2009. And then we have You Dreamed of Empires by Álvaro Enrigue, which was published I think 2022. And this one is set during the Spanish conquest, but it's specifically about the meeting between Cortés and Moctezuma, which is one of my biggest historical obsessions, and I wish there was more fiction done about it. I don't understand why there isn't. This one I didn't know it existed, and I got this one recommended by a fellow booktuber, Eva Strange. She recommended this book to me, in one of my historic videos, and I googled it, and it said during the conquest, the meeting of Cortes and Moctezuma. So I was like, I need to read this. Just 2 more to go. Okay, I'm almost done. And this one I'm going to go quick because there's also no translation. And this is by an indigenous woman. And it is called Ixbalam-Ek, Estrella, Jaguar by Ruperto Bautista. This one is set during the 6th century in pre-Hispanic, pre-conquest times in a Maya region, where there is a male leader who dies, and his wife, Ixbalam-Ek, she is the one who has to lead the people. It was originally written in Tzotzil, which is an indigenous language in Mexico, one of the many that there are, and it was originally written in that language, in Tzotzil, and then translated to Spanish by the same author, Ruperto Bautista. She's a poet, an author, and a translator. Again, this one is perfect to be picked up for a small indie press. Where are you, small indie presses? Go ahead, this one is here. Oh, and that one was published in 2023. And then the last book is also a 2023 release. This is the only one that is originally written in English, and it is called Red Smoking Mirror. It is by Nick Hunt, and Red Smoking Mirror is also set during the time of the Aztecs, but this one is alternate history. So this one would work for the speculative prompt. I don't know, the concept is so fun. So if you don't know, Spain was conquered by the Moor. There was a Moorish empire in Spain. It was called Al-Andalus. This book is set in a world where Al-Andalus was never defeated and the Moor remained in Spain, and it was the Moor who came to the Americas to look for New Maghreb instead of New Spain. One thing I think is interesting is that there was no conquest. There was a colony, but kind of like a settlement where all the cultures lived together, which is similar to what Al-Andalus was. And so it's taking that same concept but bringing it here, where the Moor created a settlement in Tenochtitlan. So you had Aztecs, Moors, and Judaism was here too, because the main character is a Jewish man. I want to say he's kind of like a merchant who lives in Tenochtitlan. And it goes from there. I think it's a fun idea for alternate history. I also love the cover for this one, and actually that volcano that you see on that cover, you can see that from I see that volcano every day. It's you can see it from where I live. So those are the 10 books that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to stop talking. I am excited. I hope that I can read one of these books. Go check out Shelly's video. I'm going to link it down below. And I would love to know if you have read any of these books, if any of these sound interesting. And that would be it for today. I will see you soon in another bookish video. And in the meantime, I wish you happy reading.